Welcome, everyone. Today we have our third panel of our panel series for the Mentoring, Advice, and Networking Opportunities program. Today, the title of our panel is "This Can Be You," and this is going to be a very motivational panel, a little bit less information heavy. We will be discussing the journeys of some amazing current grad students who are successful and who are willing to share with you their journey. So just very briefly, want to talk about the MANO program. So again, MANO stands for Mentoring, Advising, and Networking Opportunities, and it's an initiative that works to increase the representation of diverse students in graduate school by providing support and resources to undergraduate students like you, especially for underrepresented communities. So for example, community colleges. At MANO, we believe that every undergraduate, particularly those from community colleges, deserve the opportunity to broaden their horizons and discover the endless possibilities that grad school offers. So MANO has multiple resources. This is one of them, the panel sessions, which we're just trying to provide an overview of grad school experiences, as well as the application process and post-graduation career paths. There is a second part of this panel with different panelists, which is coming up in the next 3 weeks. So if you haven't registered and you want to attend that, please use the QR code on the right and register for that. We also have the Mentor Directory, which is a collection of biographies of accomplished current and former grad students who are committed to promoting diversity in graduate education. I think the majority of our panelists today did the Mentor Directory, so you can learn more about them and their stories by contacting personally. So the Mentor Directory has their contact information, so you can reach out to them. And the MANO directory is already on our website, and this is the website that you can go to and look at this resource, as well as the past recordings for this panel series. Lastly, we have the podcast, which aims to inspire students to pursue their academic dreams and expose them to a plethora of fields of study. We will be having conversations, mostly one-on-one, with current and former graduate students, and we will learn about their unique academic, personal, and professional journeys. And this is coming up soon. Hopefully by the end of the month, the first episode will be released in our website. And lastly, again, we have a plethora of resources in our website. Just visit our website using this QR code. And if you want us to talk about a specific topic, either on our panel series or our podcast, just contact us and we'll be happy to talk about the specific topic that you want us to talk about. So I'm going to stop sharing this screen, and we are going to go ahead and start. I should introduce myself. So my name is Erica Estrada, and I am the director and founder of the MANO program, and I'm a PhD candidate in the Department of Food Science and Technology here at UC Davis. I am a former community college student, and I am very passionate about mentoring other students and helping them achieving their dreams. And just like me, I think the panelists today have similar goals and are here to help you and share their journey with you. And without further ado, we're going to start getting to know them. So if the panelists can just unmute themselves and talk a little bit about yourself briefly. So maybe you can start with Angelica, and then whoever wants to go next, just jump right in.
Yeah. Hey, everyone. So nice to be here. I'm Angelica, or if you're comfortable with the Spanish pronunciation, Angelica works too. I'm currently a fourth-year PhD candidate in the Human Development Graduate Group in the Department of Human Ecology. And very broadly, my research area is within human development and neuroscience and mental health outcomes. Specifically, I study how we can study the brain to understand mental health outcomes related to anxiety and depression in teenagers. And then I didn't know if you want me to like talk about my journey, or are we
No,
doing that? Okay,
let's just introduce everyone first,
perfect.
and then we'll go into deep our journeys. So,
Perfect.
Sure. I will bounce in because my research is actually kind of like Angelica's, but stepping off in a different direction. So my name's Shannon. I am actually what is known as a postdoctoral fellow in the Department of Nutrition at UC Davis. And I bounced all over the place. So we can talk later on. I went from forensics and physics to biology to nutrition. So, but right now what I'm studying is looking at how nutrition during the first 1,000 days of life, so that is from conception through until 2 years of age in the infant, and how nutrition during that time frame can influence cognitive development and understanding, like deep down in the cells, what all those tiny little changes are that we can leverage using nutrition to improve somebody's cognitive abilities from the time that they're an infant.
awesome. Thank you, Shannon. And if you can tell us a little bit about what's a postdoctoral scholar or a postdoctoral fellow? What does that mean?
That's great. So think of it as a stepping stone between somebody who has received their PhD. So I finished my PhD a few years back, and ultimately I want to be a faculty member, a professor at an institution. And the postdoctoral researcher, postdoctoral scholar, fellow, you'll hear all the same terms. It is a stepping stone. So it is a trainee position where I do a lot of research. I do some teaching where I get more training on how to become a better professor when I eventually get that job. And maybe Ruchika can jump in and tell more.
Hello, everyone. I'm Ruchika Kashyap, and I am also a postdoctoral scholar at UC Davis in the Department of Plant Pathology. So first, I'm going to tell a little bit more about, like Shannon said, postdoctoral scholars or fellows, or they are kind of trainees. Yes. So we are like at the transitioning phase from after completing our PhD and then moving on to our careers where we want to go to academia specifically. And then we want to become professors. So it's like a training process for us where we can explore on opportunities, whether we want to go into research-oriented faculty positions or teaching-oriented faculty positions or extension-oriented faculty positions or a mixture of all the three. So you can say it's like a foundation for us to basically select what we want to do further. So elaborating on what I'm doing now is I'm working in a greenhouse and nursery pathology lab. So basically, I'm a plant doctor. So just trying to see what diseases are there on ornamental and vegetable plants, and then kind of using different management strategies or diagnostic strategies first to detect those diseases and then to manage those diseases. That's what I do about. And I also have a diverse background. I did my master's in plant pathology from India. Then I did my PhD from the United States. So I can talk a little bit more about the work cultures in different countries related to the same subjects as well. So I'll be happy to talk to you guys about anything that you want to ask me about. Perfect.
Awesome. Thank you. Go ahead.
Okay, I'll go next. Hi, everyone. I'm Brianne, and I am in my 6th year of my PhD in English at UC Davis. And my kind of emphasis, I'm doing what's called a designated emphasis, which is kind of like a concentration almost in science and technology studies. So I can talk a little bit more about what that looks like in practice later. But my PhD research is looking at the ways that bookmaking is represented in literature of the 16th and 17th centuries, specifically English literature. So I do work with Shakespeare some, but also some lesser known writers. And I'm really interested in the ways that those metaphors of bookmaking are kind of representing the relationship between humans, our environment, and also the books that we read and we use. And then I also have another kind of side project that's a little bit more historically based, that's identifying women printers and publishers in the 16th and 17th centuries in England. There's a lot more of them than it seemed like there were for a very long time. And I'm kind of helping build an online database of various court documents, like wills and inventories of their print shops and things like that, that kind of will help other researchers in this area find the networks of community of all these different book professionals who were working in the 16th and 17th centuries in England. So that's kind of what I do.
Hi, everybody. My name is Marika. It's really good to be here. I am in my second year as a human development PhD student at UC Davis. I have a master's degree in clinical psychology. So I can talk about a little bit about like clinical degrees versus non-clinical degrees and what the difference is if you want to go to an applied psychology field versus not. I study how social relationships help teenagers' mental health, quality of life, and what are the aspects of those social relationships that either help or help protect against high-risk behaviors like substance use.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you so much to the panelists for introducing themselves. Now we know a little bit more about you. I know some of you started talking about where you did your undergrad or your master's and a little bit about yourself. Maybe we can go ahead and start digging in and who are you more as a person? So we have heard the term identities, right? Like what are part of your identities? So I want to ask the panelists if they can choose 2 or 3 identities of and how those identities play part of the strengths, or how those identities are important for them personally, but also academically. Anyone wants to start the conversation? So what you think about it, I'm gonna start. So one of my identities is I'm a Mexican woman. So I actually grew up in Mexico, and when I was 17, I came to the US because I wanted to pursue a higher education. I think the way I grew up and the lack of resources that I had when I was growing up made me very resilient. And I think that that has shaped me to be the scientist and the person I am today. So I didn't choose to be Mexican, you know, some of the identities you choose, some of them they don't, but you get to embrace them. So me as being a Mexican woman, an immigrant, has allowed me to develop other skills that perhaps older people with different paths or different background stories don't have. So that is my identity, and that's how it's one of my strengths. Anyone else?
I can go ahead. So I am an international student. I was an international student here. Now I'm a postdoc. So being an international student, basically, we don't know which college we are going to choose or what opportunity is there in front of us, right? In terms of what we want to gain or what subject we want to pursue. So there are tons of opportunities around us. So I chose an opportunity to do my PhD in the United States. And then this gave me kind of an idea and kind of gave me strengths that the others might not have, where they have tried and tested different work cultures, right? So I have been exposed to different work cultures, different atmospheres, and that has kind of shaped my personality and gave me an edge in learning in kind of academics and also my personal growth. So that I feel is a strength in me. so coming from also a diverse background and also being an international student here, and then further following up my career in different universities across globally. So I think this is something that is my strength.
Thank you. Brianna, you want to go ahead? Yeah.
Yeah. I have a lot of things that I could say about this that are related to my identities, but also just my general background. So I'm happy to talk about that more later. But I think for the purposes of this question, I'd focus on my status as a first-generation college student. First-generation college student is literally just implying that I didn't have any examples of people who had gone to college in my family who were able to actually help me navigate this world. I was homeschooled by two parents who their highest degree completion was high school. And I didn't really have any family members that I was close to who had gone to college to really help me sort this out. And so, in many ways, being a first generation college student is really, really difficult. And it became even more difficult when I entered graduate school, because then I was even further removed from that experience. But I think one thing that I have come to recognize as a strength in my first gen status is that it's given me a sort of outsider's perspective. Like this world wasn't made for me, but it has really highlighted how my perspective and my viewpoint and my ideas are really valuable and can bring something new to especially a discipline like English, where there have been universities like Oxford that have been studying literature for hundreds of years, but they were all like white men who were talking about it, right? So I have really come to value my own perspective and see myself as somebody who can bring something new to research conversations, but also to my academic communities. And it's also kind of made me realize how crucial it is to have an academic community if you're going to do graduate school. It's really important to not try to go it alone and to build a community and network of mentors that you can ask questions of and you can rely on for support. And I think those are things that maybe don't come as obviously to people who have a lot of external support. I had to find that for myself. So I consider that to be a strength of mine as well.
Thank you. Angelica, do you want to speak on that, or Marika?
Sure. Yeah. So I'm similar to Erica. I am also consider myself Latina, Mexican. However, I wasn't born in Mexico. I was actually born here in the United States. So I think there were some, maybe differences in terms of navigating, developing my identity. I think growing up, I was in a predominantly suburban, white neighborhood, didn't have a lot of peers who looked like me, and didn't have a lot of peers that connected on a cultural level, to sort of what I experienced in my home and sort of what I brought into my school context, which I think initially was really, maybe I felt like I had to grow into myself a little bit and develop sort of that confidence in myself to think because I always felt different, and maybe felt like I wasn't accepted, but maybe experiencing that sort of growing my own personal confidence in the context that I grew up in, I feel helped me get to where I am today, just because it's helped me to still be persevere, and sort of develop a sense of identity with my culture, while also maintaining an identity with the American culture, and sort of navigating between those two worlds. I think has really helped me just navigate the world in general, because you encounter so many diverse individuals, especially as you get into college, and people come from many different contexts, and so it's nice to be able to just learn how to connect with others on that level, and sort of have that shared experience in some ways.
Yeah, you brought a really important point that I think is worth discussing a little bit further. So for a lot of us, first generation college students, or even your parents might have a college degree but they didn't go to grad school. How do you balance that out? How you connect, your parents and your schooling, because sometimes I feel like I'm living in two different worlds. And I think that might happen with some of our students here, that they're going to college and their parents didn't go to college. And I remember my mom saying, you spend so much time at school, you just don't want to come and wash dishes, you don't want to just come and help me, right? So for some of the students, how that, do you have an advice on how to navigate that, and how to just like embrace that first generation college student identity, but at the same time make it work with the family situation? Anyone has anything to add to the conversation?
I just want to say, like, I'm getting a PhD in human development, and my mom still thinks like she has no idea what I do, and she's like, "Are you gonna go to law school? Like, what are you doing with your life?" So I totally empathize. I think that grad school specifically can be a very isolating experience, because like those either family or friends outside of grad school, or if they didn't experience grad school themselves, like they will really not understand what you do and why you do it and why it's so exhausting, both physically and mentally. So like relying on your social support group at school is so important. If you have cohort members, which are those students who come into the program with you, or you find others in your classes or in your department overall, or your colleagues, if you're a postdoc, like finding people who really get your experience is what I think is a lifeline to fight that, because it's so isolating.
And to build on that, it's when you're going to grad school, I did both my master and my PhD. I did them in two totally different departments, two totally different PIs. And in my master's degree, my PI, I can't describe him nicely, so I'm not even going to try. To summarize, I would say I'm 38. There is a doppelganger in town, so another gentleman that looks exactly like my PI, that I still hide when I see this guy, even though I know it's not my PI. Like, he was mean, and I'm grateful to have not worked with him. So when I was choosing to do my PhD, I was very, very upfront when I was finding a supervisor and said, like, look, I had a negative experience. I really want to make sure that my next mentor is going to be a good fit for me as a mentee. Right? It's really, really important. And I'm beyond lucky that my PhD supervisor, who is now also my postdoc supervisor, has also been one of the best mentors I've ever had. If we were the same age, we'd probably be best friends and inseparable. So it's really, really critical to know your learning style, know your working style. Like, for example, I hate being micromanaged. So I was very upfront when looking for a supervisor, saying, like, is that your management style? Because if that's your management style, even though I think your research is fascinating, it's not going to work for me. So it's really, really key to make sure that you find a good mentor, because like Marika said, the PhD can be isolating. You're doing something that is very, very niche, but at the same time, it can be super rewarding, and you find brand new science, English, whatever you choose to go down, you find new things. And you're going to be doing it for a minimum of 5 years. So make sure you like the people that you're around and the project that you're working on.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much for sharing. And even though we're talking here about graduate school, I think that trickles down to undergrad. I would not be who I am without the mentors and the support that I had as an undergrad student at my community college or at my 4-year university. So that leads us to the question that is on the Jessica has asked. How do you connect with mentors and or other students? So I'm going to invite our mentors to think about your undergrad self and kind of help the students answer this question. How, as an undergrad, how did you find your mentors? And I can start. As a community college student, my classes were very small, so I made sure that I went to office hours. And so not necessarily to talk about to talk about what we learned in class, but to talk about what I was passionate about, why I was taking that class. And so I started developing this relationship with my professors. And then now I haven't been in community college in 10 years or so, but I still have a personal relationship with them. And they have written many letters of recommendations for me for graduate school, for fellowships, for scholarships. I also want to talk about the Mano mentoring directory, which I talk a little bit at the very beginning of this presentation. This Mano program has put together a mentor directory in which students like this panelist here are willing to connect with you in a personal level. So I'm going to drop in the on the chat the website of the Mano program so that you can look at those resources and you can connect with mentors. But now I want to open the floor for other people who, other panelists who have an advice on how to find mentors and how to connect with other students.
I just want to expand on what you said. You said a lot of your classes were small and you made that connection with your professors. Do that even if your classes are big. I have been adjunct faculty at Sac State for a few years now and taught classes that are upwards of 110 and 120 students. And I love it when students come to talk to me. Yes, if they have questions about the materials, great. If not, I like getting to know my students. Most of your instructors do want to get to know you. So talk to them. From the STEM side, so if you are in any of the sciences, if there's a class and a professor that you really like their research, you can talk to that professor. And our lab, we actually have more undergraduate interns right now than we do have graduate and postdocs, because they come in and they want to train and experience a nutrition science lab. So you can ask and see if anybody is willing to take you on as it could be a volunteer. In our lab, often students volunteer and then they actually get paid summer jobs. So it also give you a really good idea if research is something you're truly interested in.
I want to add on something like, I just want to say that it might seem scary to reach out, and, it's totally normal. And, it will never stop. When whatever phase you are in, wherever you reach. I have done my undergrad, my master's, my PhD. Now I'm working as a postdoc, but still I am scared to reach sometime to people, so it will be with you. So, but when you do reach out to people, you will see the difference. You will see that it creates an impact. It opens up your personality and helps you make connections. And this is a small world. You never know who is going to help you and who is going to inspire you, like in ways possible that we cannot even imagine. And then there's an opportunity standing right in front of you, and then you can just grab it. So.
Yeah.
Awesome. Go ahead.
Oh, go ahead.
Okay, I wasn't sure. Oh yeah, I was gonna add that also, like, depending, I'm not entirely sure what it looks like at Woodland Community College, but there might be even like some funding resources available to you. Like here at UC Davis, we have an undergraduate research center. Specifically that provides funding to students to do like research projects. There's small little research projects that you would be able to do in a lab. So you find a lab that you like, you become a research assistant. And then if you want to get a little bit more of that research experience to see what it's like to, analyze some data and come up with like results, you can actually apply for some of these, what we call like undergraduate research scholarships. And you can actually use some of that funding to get more one-on-one time with the primary researcher in that lab. So it really helps you sort of it can also set you up to take that first step and have that courage to talk to those professors. So I know that like sometimes that helps, and that's actually something that I did as an undergraduate. I did part of my undergraduate at UC Davis, so I did one of those research programs, and had it not been for that, I'm not sure I would have. I'm not sure if my path would look the same here. So I always encourage students to apply for them, and there's multiple of them, and you'd be surprised how. You'd be surprised at like how much you might be able to get it. So just want to put that out there too.
I was going to say that another great place to meet a professor, if not a community college, but they also have these at community colleges, but at a four-year institution would be to just go to a talk, like a professional talk or like a speaker event of any kind where the topic interests you. I went to a speaker event about getting a PhD in graduate school. I thought I knew what that was, and I thought I was like, okay, that's great. I'm gonna go and just get some information. And turned out I had no idea what I was doing, or I had no idea what a PhD is, and that's how I met the speaker who ended up becoming my mentor through my undergrad and through my master's. And so if you can just go to any sort of professional development, or even if it's not office hours, just meet people that way and meet professors that way. I think that's really helpful.
Yeah, and I just wanted to say, adding on that specific point, is that all of you guys are already doing what you're supposed to be doing. Like, just by being here, you're already trying to develop that network. And so I am sure if you want to meet a specific, talk further with any of these panelists, you can private message them right now and ask them for the contact info, and they'll be more than happy to provide you with their email and talk to you further about whatever questions you have had, that you have. Also, again, that mentor directory, there's over 30 different graduate students that have submitted a profile for that mentor directory that you can reach out to. They are from different disciplines. And also, I heard while the panelists were talking, they were talking about research opportunities. And I know that for some of you guys, research opportunities are very limited, especially in community college. If you're in a four-year institution, you probably have higher chances to volunteer, etc. So I'm going to put on the chat this website that is called Pathways to Science, that has over 1,000 different in summer internships that are paid for you to do as an undergrad. That's where I found my first summer internship. And actually I flew to Maine. They paid me $4,000 back then for do 10-week internship. So there are additional resources out there. And that's how I met a lot of my network, because if I was there, it was because I was interested in doing research. So I met a lot of peers who were also interested in research. And no, all of us ended up doing research, but still you form this network of people who are interested in similar things. I met a lot of people at my MESA program. So I know a lot of you guys heard about Mano through your MESA program. So that could be a very safe space for you to start developing some of these relationships. I'm going to move to some of these questions, and if any of the other participants has any questions, you can drop it in the chat, or you can just unmute yourself and ask it right away. This panel is for you, so we are happy to answer any questions. So the question here is, how do you deal with connecting with mentors when English is your second language, if there is any? Sometimes I struggle with letting myself know because it's not my first language. So I think there's a couple of us who can answer to this question. So like I said, I came here from Mexico, and when I was 17, and I didn't know English at all, but I have my first mentor when I was 18, so like a year after, and she was Caucasian. She did not speak Spanish at all. So it was a struggle, but a lot of these people who want to mentor, they are willing to help. They want to learn. They want to provide you the resources. And I think that the only way you are going to get better at speaking English is if you practice it, And I know it's hard. I've gone through it. There were many days that I cried because I couldn't communicate. But you shouldn't be embarrassed. You should be proud of yourself because you speak another language. If English is not your first language, you're already bilingual, right? So you should be very proud and embrace that, which is what we were talking at the very beginning. Embrace those things that make you unique, because you might see them as a weakness, but actually they're a strength. So I'm going to say, just practice, just put yourself out there. The people who care about you, they will go the extra mile to try to have a connection with you. And now with the internet, hey, you don't have to even talk if you don't want to. You can do email back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. So that's my suggestion. Anyone else has anything else to say about that?
Yeah,
No,
go ahead.
rock, paper, scissors. No, okay. All I was just gonna say, one, English is my first language. French is my sort of second. And I attempted to take a class in French and it did not go well. So just massive kudos to all of you out there trying, like, academics and school is hard enough in your first language. I can't imagine doing it in a second. So first, like, give yourself a massive pat on the back for that. Like Erica said, like, that makes you strong. And then I just wanted to highlight, yes, reach out. Like Jessica says here, we do tend to overthink it, and a lot of people are willing to help. You're going to find one or two along the way that aren't, but most of us, like, we're here to help. We've encountered we've all not been able to communicate, even if it is our first language. And I'm currently part of a very large international project. We have a bunch of scientists here from Norway and Denmark, and we had to pause the conversation all of 3 hours ago for somebody to pull out Google Translate. That's fine. You just stand there and wait for a minute and you find ways to communicate. So just keep trying.
Thank you, Shannon. I was just going to add on Erica's and Shannon's comments, like, you are not alone out there. There will be many people like you with same issues, or I wouldn't say this is an issue. So like many people with the same kind of things that you are dealing with, they are dealing it too. So you're not alone. You'll find people who are at the topmost positions, but had the same background as you, right? So, and then people who are ready to mentor you, they don't judge you by your pronunciations, or they won't judge you like by your grammar. So they will be ready to help you no matter how your grammar is, no matter how your pronunciation is. And that's what it is. So don't worry about how you are speaking. Just start, I would say.
Yeah. I love the advice that you are giving to our students. And Paula, if there's anything I can do for you, I'll drop in my personal email. I speak Spanish. I don't know what language you speak, what's your first language, but I speak Spanish. I know Angelica speaks Spanish. There are a couple other mentors who speak Spanish as a first language that I'm happy to connect you with. But yeah, there's going to be a point where you just have to speak English, and might as well do it now and screw up now, so that you can, in the next 2-3 years, you feel like comfortable, and it's a struggle. Like for me, when I'm writing and reading articles, it takes me 3 or 4 more times than it will take someone that reads and writes English perfectly. But hey, that's where our other values come, and then like, I'm gonna do it, I'm gonna persevere, and that's how you keep on doing it, and then one day it will be easier. Yes, so yeah, Paula, to just contact me, and everyone that is on that directory is willing to help you, and there are more of us also willing to help you. And now we can start talking more about, like, how do you guys end up going into grad school? Some of you guys have mentioned that they're first generation college students. How do you even end up here? If your parents or no one that you knew, was familiar with grad school, how do you end up here?
I can jump in on this one. I think I mentioned earlier that I was actually homeschooled for my entire secondary school education from 2nd grade through high school. And I dual enrolled at a community college in North Carolina. And that was the first time I had ever set foot in an actual classroom space. And it was very intimidating to me. And I grew up in a very, very strict fundamentalist religious background, with parents who encouraged me to go to college, but really their framework was like, you should have a degree to fall back on in case, you know, being a housewife doesn't work out, or like, you know, the economy crashes, like you have to go to work. Like that was kind of their perspective. And so I entered college with really like no idea what I was doing there, honestly. I started out as a music major. I was piano performance major, and that's how I transferred in from community college, was into their music program at UNC Charlotte. And I got kind of overwhelmed within the first 6 weeks of transferring into a four-year institution. The expectations of a music program are very intense. You have to do all of your general education requirements like English and math and sciences and stuff, while you're also taking these classes like recitals and performance and piano lessons. So within 6 weeks, I was done. I was just like, I can't do this anymore. I don't know what to do now, because I'm supposed to be getting this degree. I'm here. I'm like on a scholarship trying to, you know, pave my way and work my way through this. I was just like, well, you know, I like to read, so maybe I'll be an English major. And, you know, within a year, I had taken a class. It was the British Literature Survey. So it was like literature from, you know, medieval England through like 1800 was the time span. And it was a big lecture class, like 80 or 100 students. And the professor was just like so excited about what he was talking about. Like every class period, he was just bubbling over with excitement, so excited to talk to students. And I distinctly remember a moment like 3 weeks into this class where I was like, this is a job. Like, this is a job I could have. Like, I didn't know that, like, how you even started to become that. But I was just like, okay, somehow this man who loves doing this, who loves reading, somehow got a job where he's standing in front of students and teaching us this thing that he loves. And so I kind of joke with him now, because we're kind of friends now after, you know, a decade or 11 years or whatever, that like I just kind of started following him around. I was like, after class, I'd go up to him and be like, hi, can we talk about what we just talked about in class some more? And like, I would go to his office hours, and eventually I was like, I want your job. Like, how do I get your job? This kind of speaks to the mentorship point too, is like, that is a potential opening. You could say like, yeah, I'm really interested in this career that you have. How do I do it? And, you know, because I was a first-gen college student, I genuinely did not even know like graduate school was like a thing. And so I'm thinking like, yeah, he's a teacher, you know, he got a degree in teaching. And it's like, no, actually, he got a master's degree, and then he got a PhD, and then he got the job. So he kind of walked me through what that looked like. And then we made a plan together for how to prepare myself with my undergraduate studies. I was a sophomore at the time. It was like, here's the classes you should take if you're interested in this job. Around this time of the year, in your junior, senior year, you're going to be applying for master's degree programs. And the master's degree will kind of help you figure out if this is what you want to do, if you want to focus more on research or teaching. And then that'll be 2 years. And then at the end of those 2 years, you'll apply for PhD programs. So he really like walked me through the whole process. And that's literally why I am here, is because we kind of built that relationship, kind of based on me like pestering him and being like, I really want your job. Can you please help me figure out how to get it? And he was one that was initially a little bit, I wouldn't say like, he wasn't closed off. I would just say that he was open to mentorship, but very busy. And so it was one where I had to kind of be persistent, where I was like, I had identified like I wanted to do a similar career track to him, and also in the same kind of area. And so I was persistent and I didn't give up. And it only took a couple of weeks where he was like, yeah, she's really serious. Like, we're gonna make this happen. So it did pay off, but it really was like a persistence thing for me.
Awesome.
Yes, very much persistence. Faculty get hundreds upon hundreds of emails a day. And I understand, like, even as a postdoc, if you write in like, I'm in Carolyn's lab, big name, well-known name, and it's still sometimes I have to go to her and say, can you please send this email? Because if it comes from your account, they'll see it and answer it. like, do not feel bad, and do not hesitate to email a couple of times. And if you don't hear after the third one, okay, maybe you found somebody who's not quite willing to help. But yes, if you email a few times, they will realize that you are serious, and most will turn around and help you.
Angelica, do you want to share with us how you end up here?
Yeah, definitely. I still feel like I asked myself that question, like, how did I end up here? Like, I don't even know. But yeah, I started like very different path. Like, I did not ever see myself as a scientist. I never had that like moment where I was like, yeah, that's the career I want. I want to be them. It was a lot of like self-discovery as I went, from especially like post high school to like currently where I'm at now. So like in high school, I definitely didn't see college as like something that was for me. I didn't think I was like smart enough, but I was also like, I'm not like a college person. So I actually did a trade school. I got my cosmetology license, and I did that. I was like so focused on that. I built like a career out of that. It was about 5 years that I did that. So and during that time frame though, like maybe halfway through, as I really started developing as like a, I guess, hairstylist, I started realizing that maybe I wanted more for myself. Like maybe this isn't like where I stay for the rest of my career. Maybe I want more in terms of like education. So I took like a community college class here and there. And then I had very supportive, honestly, like I think it was partly my clients who were like really believed in me, and I would share with my story, and they share their stories with me. And I told them like, yeah, I'm taking a class. I kind of want to get my associate's degree. And they're like, you should definitely do it. So then I started taking like more classes, and then eventually I was doing like full time while working full time. And then I had a supportive boss at that time too, who I like told her, I said, hey, I really want to take classes, and I don't want it to get in the way of my work, but I want to be able to do this. And she was like, okay, how about we have you work like 4 days, and you just extend your hours those days, and then you can take like, this day to do your classes. So eventually I was full-time student doing hair. And then again, I was like, I'm just going to get my associates and that's it. Like, I'm good. I just want to have like some security there. But then of course, the time comes where I'm ready to transfer, and I'm like, all right, I guess I'll apply to, colleges. Let's just see what happens. So I applied to UC Davis. And I grew up in Southern California. So I applied to UCSB, Santa Barbara, and I was like, I'll probably go to Santa Barbara, but I'm like, maybe I kind of I need to get it in some ways, like in my family, it's very much like everyone's like stays together. No one ever like leaves. And I'm like, maybe I need that for myself to like push me a little bit. So I got into Davis, visited Davis, and then I was like, all right, I guess I really like Davis. I think I want to transfer here. And so I ended up taking that leap to transfer to UC Davis, and actually left behind my career as a hairstylist, which was, I'd say, like one of the most difficult decisions I've had to make, because I went like a whole other path and got to UC Davis. And I remember I have an older sister who went to college, and one of her friends was a psych major, which was my major. And she recommended that I get involved in research. So had it not been for her, I would have not known to get involved in research. But I sought out like a research lab. And like I said, I applied for this like research like fellow scholarship where I got a little bit of funding to do like a research project. And like with that sort of funding, they also supplied like workshops of like, this is what graduate school looks like. Graduate school is funded. If you get to a PhD program, it's fully funded. And in my mind, I was like, I probably need to go on to more schooling. And if it's fully funded, like I think I could do that, as opposed to like having to pay for additional degrees. I was like, that sounds really great. And then as I did my research projects, I realized that I was really passionate about what I was researching, which is using psychology and figuring out making more positive mental health outcomes for the youth. And I think it partly stemmed from like my personal experiences growing up, and maybe realizing that some of those experiences hindered me from like achieving maybe some of my goals. And so I was just like, okay, I'm passionate about this. I want to make a positive impact, and I can do that with research. And it's a long answer, but then I got like after I graduated, I worked as a lab manager And my advisor as a lab manager asked me if I wanted to like be a PhD student. And I was like, oh, yeah, of course. Like I'm like, I didn't know that was like allowed. I thought you like shouldn't work with the same advisor. And she's like, no, you can totally work. And so it just kind of worked out that she was looking for a PhD student. She thought we were a good fit. I had already worked for her. So that's where I'm at now, working with that advisor. And it's been a really great experience. I know that we're going to talk about sort of like also like the negative sides too of, PhD programs, but that's sort of just how I got to where I am today. And that's why I'm always like, I don't know how I got here, but I'm here. And I do see myself more as a scientist now, but it definitely wasn't like something that was always with me.
Yeah, and I just want to highlight that both stories that we heard so far, they deal with mentorship part, right? Like someone other than your family, especially for first generation college students, pointed us to the right direction. And in the case of Angelica and Brian, they both went by themselves and then look for this research experiences. But I also want to tell you that you don't have to do it alone. Like, for example, in UC Davis, there are programs, for example, the McNair Scholar Program, which is a program that you apply for if you are like interested in going to grad school, and you start with like a group of people, and they give you money to do research. They help you get an advisor to do research. They also prepare you with classes. Back then you had to take a test to go into grad school. I think that's called the GRE. I don't think a lot of programs have that, but they would prepare you to get to grad school. So whether you do it by yourself and with a mentor that you found, you can also do it through a program. So I just want to put that out there, that there are many avenues for you to follow. And I want to hear of like one more person, and then we will jump into our last questions, because we're almost time to wrap this up. So anyone else would like to share how they end up being here, a grad student?
Sure. I'm a little like Angelica, where you look like, hey, how did I end up here? I actually, after undergrad, I did my undergraduate in Canada. I'm Canadian. And I was working for Apple Retail, of all things, doing inventory control. And I really wanted to be a police officer. So I'd applied to the city police department in the city I was living in, and ultimately wasn't accepted. And the advice I was given was, you're just a little young, go get life experience and come back. So I decided, well, I'll do my master in forensic science, because I ultimately wanted to do forensic identification. So that's how I ended up in Davis. I did my master in forensic science here. And that was my first exposure to research, because that program was half classes and half research. And ultimately, it was the director of that forensics program that saw something in me. And he said, have you ever considered a PhD? And I said, well, why? Right? I came here with this goal of becoming a better scientist to be able to go back and be a better police officer. And he said, yes, but you could lead a research team. You have the drive, you have the mind, just think about it, right? I never considered a PhD until he said that. And I went home and talked to my roommates, because one of them was a postdoc and one of them was a PhD student at the time. So like, what are your experiences? Tell me what you've encountered. And I ultimately ended up doing my PhD and was in nutrition, because the very specific research question I had looked at the microbiome. So all of those bacteria that live in your gut. And could we use that to determine the time of death of a body? Sorry, I know that's really morbid. But the woman that ended up becoming my mentor was like world renowned in the scientific techniques that we use to do this. And very long story short, about a year in, she basically told me, that's disgusting. That's not nutrition. You need a different project. So That's how I started looking at iron deficiency and how that affects brain development in infants. Right, so totally different. My master's, I worked with firearms. And then I go to working with pigs and iron and just, but you know what? All those things that I learned in my master, all the things I learned, I started as a physics major as an undergraduate, right? I use stuff that I learned there. So it is okay to take this like wildly wandering path. You're not wasting your time. Yes, I took 6 years to do my undergrad because I changed programs. That's okay. I use that knowledge. I use that information, right? And you then think differently. So when you are then sitting down as a group with maybe your lab mates and you're trying to solve a problem, there's all these different perspectives, and it's actually a really good thing. And so here I am, I have no desire to go back and be a police officer anymore. And I'm looking at actually being a professor. So like, don't be stuck in being one thing, but like actually consider all these doors that open as you move forward.
Yeah, I really like that advice, Shannon. I think a lot of the time, especially, there's a lot of pressure on like, you need to know what you're gonna do next. As an undergrad, like you're starting college and they're already asking you, what major are you gonna be? Don't change your major because you're gonna delay graduation. Like, what are you gonna do next? I think there's just a lot of pressure, specifically in younger people, to figure out what they want to do next. And I think it's like Shannon said, it's okay if you don't know what you want. Some of us are still figuring out what we want, and I'm about to graduate with my PhD, and that's okay. Because like Shannon said, I took the opportunities I had in the past and have made me who I am today. And I am so happy with who I am today, you know? So regardless of what I'm going to do next academically. So embrace all those opportunities, take advantage of those opportunities, and try new things, because that's the only way you're going to figure out what you really want to do and what you don't want to do. So I think before we ask the last question to our panelists, the raffle for the participants was run on the background, and I decided that I'm going to give 2 prizes today for the attendees. There's going to be the $15 gift card, and then I'm gonna give the second person some Mano swag. I think I have some lanyards that I made with the Mano logo, so I will send those to the second winner. So the first winner, I put it was all your names were put randomly, and then one was selected. So the person for the $15 gift card is, and I'm sorry if I mispronounced your name, but please correct me, Elaine Moss. You got the gift card, so please email me at the end of this so that I can get your email and everything to figure out how to get that gift card to you. And Jesse Garcia was the second winner. Please again message me so that I can give you your little surprise. And then the last question I wanna ask panelists, the last question, sorry, I got distracted with the chat, is, okay, you're in grad school, you already quote unquote made it to grad school from like how far you thought you were gonna be or who you were going to become. What are you going to do next? And if you don't know, that's okay, because that shows our participants that they don't have to know what you want to do. So I would like to start with Marika. Do you want to tell us what you want to do next, or how do you see yourself after the PhD? And that's okay if you don't know yet.
I feel like I'm at dinner with my relatives. I am leaning towards going into private industry, so working for a private corporation to do research on social relationships, but I don't know exactly what. I'm leaning towards tech industry, but
That sounds good. That sounds good. I just want to give students an idea of what kind of jobs they could get after going to grad school. So
I just want to add that I talked to someone who works on Instagram the other day, and they told me that Lego hires PhDs to do social science research on Lego and the impact of kids playing with Lego. So I think you can literally get a job with a PhD in any field if you really look hard enough.
Nice. Who wants to
Good.
go next? Go ahead.
It's very true. There is a gentleman out there called the Cheeky Scientist, and it's his goal to get a PhD into every region, like space. I'm not thinking of the right word, but like every area of industry. And that's literally his whole business, is helping get PhDs into industry. So you're not confined to academics. Yes, I am looking at a faculty position, and I would like to have a more heavy teaching role than research role. And I want to say, I'm very sorry. We have a bunch of visitors from Denmark here right now, and the bus for dinner leaves in 10 minutes. So I will put my email in the chat. And if anybody has questions, like, please don't hesitate to email me. But I do need to drop out while you hear from everybody else. But it
Thank
was
you,
great to
Shannon.
meet you all.
Thank you. Angelica, do you want to go next?
Oh, perfect. Okay, yeah. Yeah. So I don't know exactly what I want to do, but I definitely have like visions of like, okay, I could take this path, or this path. So I'm still considering professor route. So I would do a postdoc after I graduate with my PhD, and then probably hopefully get a professor job. So that's still on my mind, but I'm also considering private industry or the public sector. So I really love living in California. So I'm like, I do want to still like have an involvement in that way, maybe like policy work or state level work. But I'm also open to industry work if that's, in my future. But I think one thing I want to note, and why I sort of have these like maybe multiple paths that I'm considering, is that while the PhD is very time consuming, life still happens in the background. And the older I've gotten and sort of like more aware of what I want for my life, I've just kind of been considering that in the back of my mind. So that's why I'm like, okay, I'm not completely set on professor yet. I want to figure out what might be best for my life at this time, side of maybe the PhD.
I can go next. So, yeah, like Angelica mentioned, I am also not very sure of what I want to do next. And I think it's totally fine because it also depends on the kind of opportunities you have in front of you. And then what you should know is which field you want to go in, right? At least if you have that kind of knowledge or that kind of thought in your head, then you will find opportunities in that field, in private sector or public sector. You'll find tons of opportunities around, and not only in the place you are at, but definitely places far from you as well, where you can always go, and then there are a lot of options for you. The only thing I want to mention is the learning curve never stops, no matter if you are doing your PhD or then to a postdoc, and then maybe I become a professor, but the learning curve never stops. Try and find people around you who can help enhance that learning curve. And it can be anyone, to be honest. It's not like that if I'm a PhD, I can only learn from a PhD, right? So you can learn from literally any person, and anyone can be your mentor. Like even your fellow, classmate can be your mentor as well. If they have some little bit more experience, maybe in terms of their background they already have, or what they are doing like extracurricularly that you don't know of, but they can, advise you to do that. So literally, like everywhere around you is knowledge. So just grab from wherever you want, and then learn from wherever you can, and then just go for it, and then there will be opportunities for you. And
Awesome.
you can also contact me anytime with any questions. I'll also drop my personal email in the chat.
Thank you.
I'll make mine quick. But I kind of know what's next. I got a postdoc position as my next stepping stone, as folks were talking about earlier. So my postdoc is at the University of Virginia starting this fall, and it's very teaching focused, which is really exciting. And my ultimate goal is to get a professorship and be a professor somewhere. But I also it's worth noting that if you're interested in going into a humanistic discipline like English, or history or philosophy or any of those, jobs are very, very limited. So it's good to have alternative plans and kind of make plans for other careers. And so my other career that I'm kind of planning for is also to kind of enter the academic library space and work as a librarian or a curator in like a special collections environment or something like that. So I kind of have two options, but at least for right now, the next, 2 to 3 years are settled and I'll be in Virginia.
That's awesome. That's awesome. And for me, my ultimate goal is to be a community college professor. In the meanwhile, I will be actually I just took a job down in the Central Valley where I first started my journey in the US. But ultimately, I want to teach at community college, and I'm happy to be. I'm happy to answer any further questions for you all. Just feel free to email me, or if you have any suggestions or anything that you want us to talk about in the Mano program in future series or during our podcast, just email us to the Mano program at gmail.com, and we'll be happy to make those conversations happen. I want to thank our panelists for their time. It was a great conversation. I am sure students learn a lot from our conversations, and students just embrace who you are, and those things that make you different, make you special, and make you stronger than the rest. Embrace that, know your worth, and go for it. Don't be afraid. And there are a lot of people like you with similar backgrounds in grad school, and just like us, you can be successful in anything you decide to do in the future. Thank you all for coming. And I hope you have a great rest of your days. Thank you a lot, panelists. Thank you for your wonderful advice. Thank you all.